1993 with 3 hit singles out the box. The Atlanta Constitutional right. Toni Braxton came at a time when pure, unprocessed singing is back in style.
Toni Braxton. Oh, I have to thank God.
Miss Braxton rightly holds her rhythm and blues crown, and she will continue to hold that crown, becoming one of the best-selling acts in R&B music. Like many great R&B and soul acts, the story of Toni Braxton starts in the church.
Lucky kid. He's a preacher's kid. So, of course, it means I grew up singing in church all the time, and my sisters and I had a singing group. We were called the Braxton Sisters. So we would sing in church, and my mom is an amateur opera singer. So she taught me, like, the theory, and I guess singing in church was like practicum.
Toni Braxton comes from a singing family, so there are many singing families across many music genres. In your opinion, is singing the gift of singing? Do you believe that it is hereditary?
100% yes, I do. I think almost every talent that we have is a part of our DNA. You know, I think if you talk to most people who sing, they will tell you that there are other people in their families who sing. Every now and then, as a teacher, I'll come across somebody who's like, oh, nobody in my family sings, but it's very rare, even if no one is a professional singer, that they're not some kind of musician or like an extremely musical person.
The Braxton Sisters will release an album that will go nowhere, but Toni, as the lead voice, will catch the ear of music producers and be offered a solo career. Toni was an out-of-the-gate hit, skyrocketing to #1 on the charts, outselling the likes of Whitney Houston, Mariah Carey, and Celine Dion. Tracy Jordan, vice president of MTV, told the News and Record that, even with her grown sound, Toni Braxton is an MTV artist.
One of the talented young ladies to hit the scene with her debut album, Toni Braxton, self-entitled.
Thank you.
It's me, mommy, it's me.
In an era where R&B acts still could not garner significant airtime on MTV, Toni would break ground by ushering in their urban music programming.
Should have brought you home. Right. And another sad love song. What's your inspiration for these great hits that
Well, I wanted to show that there were various sides of love. Love isn't always, oh, darling, hold me.
Please.
Mm-hmm.
You've been called a hipper Anita Baker, a mellower Whitney Houston. You like the comparisons?
I'm flattered. Look at their success. Whitney Houston and Anita Baker are two of my favorite singers, and I just feel blessed to be compared to them, of course.
Braxton's appeal to MTV audiences likely lay in her comparisons to Whitney Houston. Miami Herald music critic Fernando Gonzalez would write about Braxton's success. The Academy likes Anita Baker's sophistication and craftsmanship and Whitney Houston's voice. Braxton is this year's shiny new model. Like Baker and early Whitney Houston, Braxton is a fine singer.
So we meet her at the age of, well, the Braxtons did have a group, but we know her. She is 25, 26 years old. So she, I guess, in mainstream music is sort of kind of a late bloomer. With women's voices, you know, how does that make a difference? Us meeting her in her mid to late 20s as opposed to meeting her at the age of 18, 19, 20, like so many other women.
You know, voices mature, just like the rest of our bodies. Your voice grows up. You know whose story it reminds me of when you say that is Anita Baker. And so she also started late, and you hear, I think in her first album, you hear a maturity that doesn't exist in some earlier singers. Of course, both of them are creating. Anita Baker, I guess, is more like a jazz singer, and then Toni Braxton is more of an R&B singer, but they're not creating in the pop world where it's kind of like you kind of want that immaturity in the voice at the beginning in order to get established, because you kind of have to appeal to the younger ears, I think. But it's the voice matures, it settles, and you're going to have a lot more mastery of it, assuming that you've been really working that entire time on your instrument and on understanding what what you want to say as an artist. And I think you do hear that in Toni Braxton's voice. It always sounds settled. That's one of the things that I love about her. It just sounds very smooth and settled from the beginning.
Much of Braxton's comparisons in her debut years are to Anita Baker and Whitney Houston. The Atlanta Journal would write, while Whitney Houston and Anita Baker took baby breaks, a new voice that encompasses their range, flair, and vibrance made their absences barely noticeable. Listening to recordings on the early album, you can hear that Braxton's voice possesses the color qualities of both women. That is the color of Whitney Houston. That is the color of Anita Baker.
Something I think is interesting is when she comes out, she's compared to Anita Baker, as you said, but also Whitney Houston, a mix of them. And so something that I think is interesting is that, like, if you didn't know who was singing, if I just put the sheet music in front of you, their arrangements are actually almost nearly identical. They're more alike than they are different.
The typical structure for the female voice in pop music is the lowest note will be around low G to low A, and you will often find it in the vocal line of a song. There's generally a big note in the center of the voice between middle A and D. And the highest note generally sung in a pop song will lie around E at the top of the staff to A above the staff. If you examine Anita Baker's No One in the World, Whitney Houston's Saving All My Love For You, and Toni Braxton's Another Sad Love Song, you will see they all share a similar template. The lowest note will be around low G to low A, and you will often find it in the vocal line of a song.
I look back on all those good times we once shared. You've got your family, and they need you there. Something my car tried to clear my mind, didn't help me.
There's generally a big note in the center of the voice between middle A and D at the top of the staff.
But no other man's gonna do
This note generally sung in a pop song will lie around E to A above the staff. Sing within the same range, the color and the quality of their voices are the biggest differentiators between them.
Two of those women, consider themselves contraltos. The one, people debate if she's a soprano or a mezzo, but their music sits around the same place. So how can the color influence how a listener or even a singer perceives their voice?
That is such a great question, because I think when we talk about voice types, people mistake the type of the voice for the range of the voice. And it's actually the color more than the range that's going to determine what your voice type is. And especially when we're talking about opera, it's especially true. And in a way, in popular music, it doesn't matter because you sing whatever you want to sing in whatever range you choose to sing it. Like there are operatic mezzos who can sing the same notes as a soprano, but the notes are going to sound different in each one of their voices. And they're going to have a slightly different timbre that's going to make someone say, oh, that's a soprano, that's a mezzo. And what's going to happen, the mezzo's voice is going to feel like this, typically, and the soprano's voice is going to feel like this. So as the mezzo goes higher, her voice is going to get smaller. As the soprano goes higher, her voice is going to get bigger, and vice versa. And that's kind of the general marker. And the timbre, the color of the voice is going to make other people perceive the voice to be this thing or that thing. If I were in that side of the fence, I would not even bother labeling myself, because who cares what your voice type, like, be whatever it is, sing the notes.
I can climb the highest mountain, swim against the raging sea.
As it concerns Braxton's type of voice, Braxton would tell the Anchorage Daily News, "I'm a true contralto. When I was younger, my voice was lower in pitch. As I've gotten older, for whatever reason, it's gotten higher."
So when she says my voice has gotten higher for whatever reason, how does that happen with women? I know some women's voices just stay in the same place, like Taylor Dana said hers hasn't changed. Some women's get lower, but she says hers gotten higher.
I think it's rare for the voice not to change. The voice is always going to change as you grow up. If you are constantly working, your voice is going to change in one way or the other. You're either going to get really much better at what you do, or you're going to get much worse at what you do. If you have the technique, you're going to get better at it. If you don't have the technique, you're going to get worse at it, right? Assuming that you're a singer who's consistently working and or not working on the voice. If you're working and working on the voice, your range is bound to expand. You're bound to be better at things when you're later in life that you weren't as good at when you're younger, like a lot of sopranos will suddenly develop a bottom after they get to being like in their late 30s and 40s, a type of middle and bottom range that they couldn't even dream about having when they were younger. Whereas, and then someone who always thought of themselves as a mezzo suddenly finds an extension, but it's not because necessarily the voice has changed. It's because they have learned more about how to move through their instrument, and therefore they have access to more of the instrument. And so when you're working on your voice all the time, and when you're working like that all the time, you get freer and freer. And the freer you get as an artist, the more notes are going to open up in both ranges, but especially in the top, because the top is what people fear. So when you release fear, freedom in the top is bound to come.
Years later, she'd tell Entertainment Tonight that before recording her debut album, she had gotten a nose job, and that made singing higher easier.
All of our voices depend on our faces. The timbre of your voice has a lot to do with the shape of your head, your bone structure, how wide your jaw is. Like all of these different things have so much to do with how our voice sounds. The way our faces are shaped are going to determine what sounds are made in the resonance. And so if you are singing in the resonance, you're going to have a different sound. And the nose especially, because our resonance is here behind the eyes and in the sinus chamber, really. If you're in this part of the voice, if you change something in this part of your face, it's bound to have an effect on your voice. Well, I mean, like most singers, her cheekbones sit high. And that's the thing about singers. We'll tend to have a big face, right? And a face that has like very almost exaggerated characteristics. And for her, you see like she has really exaggerated high cheekbones. And so that's going to give her a certain type of resonance. And that's going to, I don't know, I can't say if it's going to make her voice sound lower or higher because it's actually the length of the vocal folds that are going to make the voice higher or lower. But as far as her face shape is concerned, she has a face of a singer to me because she has those high cheekbones. The jaw, maybe not, but she has like that. But when she releases her jaw, and this is a thing that you'll see in her singing.
So you're saying the
and it sounds so easy. Exactly. Right? Play that again. Let me see. Let's watch that again. So she's released the jaw here, right? Like this, where your mandible joint is. And if you put your finger like right here on your ear, you can feel a little hole right there. That opens the yawn space behind, like that. You know how teachers, if you're watching and you hear a teacher always say, open your mouth like you're gonna yawn, right? That little thing right there opens that space and it helps you to get the voice up and into the resonance. And so when she wants to access that high head voice, woo, she's going to do that right there because it's going to put her right where she needs to be. But she actually keeps that space open for most of the time that she is singing. And it's interesting because that's one of the things that makes her color the way that it is, because it's almost like she has a little bit of an operatic sound that the entire time she's singing, even when she's belting and when she's singing like down low, she still has a little bit of that head mix in her sound all the time. And it's because she's always open and putting her sound up there. So that has a lot. Yeah, that's absolutely it. But when she goes up, she does.
The Toni Braxton album comes at a pivotal point in Black music. As the Austin American would put it, rap held a decisive reign over other forms of contemporary music until artists such as Babyface, Toni Toni Braxton, and Mary J. Blige surfaced, making R&B hot again. The album would be among a collection of albums released during this time period that will shape the next generations of R&B singing, where the standard of R&B singing shifted away from pure hard gospel-styled vocal deliveries to moods and aesthetics.
those 93 to 95 albums were like Toni, Brandy, even Mary. Those were very influential in shaping how R&B is sung today. Toni represents like an important bridge between like the very traditional gospel influence and that modern, vibey type of R&B that is the dominant today.
Absolutely.
Sultry is the word most used to describe Braxton as a woman and a singer. To be sultry is to have a sensual or alluring quality. Sultry is more associated with a level of sophistication, which is another word that is often used to describe her. So Toni's aesthetic is sultry sophistication, and this shows up in her vocal delivery, or as we will call it, Toni-isms.
No, there are the Toni-isms, I guess we will call them. These different little affectations, and I think this song is actually a great example of it. 1 second, I will play the clip.
And I can't stop thinking about it. And I can't stop doing without it. And I can't stop thinking about it.
If you hear a lot of people like imitating her, they will often exaggerate though one of those two sounds. What I hear and what I feel is that in both of those, to produce both of those sounds, there's no chord closure.
I don't know if I would say that there's no chord closure, but I would say that she's intentionally allowing air into the sound, which is something you can only do if you have a microphone to amplify the sound.
You know, if you cared anything about love, you would have been from Tennessee.
But the thing that she does that I think makes it work for her, because a lot of times when you're making the sound that airy, you're going to exhaust yourself. And so untrained singers who try to who try to do that will find that they get dry and hoarse a lot. But the thing that Toni Braxton does that makes it easy for her is she keeps her vowels high and placed up here, and she keeps the sound and the affect inside of the resonance.
Honey, honey, if you knew anything about me, you would have been much more tender.
So like if I do it the other way, and just in my speaking, I start to let a lot of air through the sound, you're going to hear my voice sort of like bottoming out, and you're not going to really be able to understand what I'm saying if you're not like right here with me, or I'm not speaking into a microphone. But if I do the same thing and I keep my vowels up here, you're going to be able to understand me a lot better, right? So that's what she does. She plays with the resonance. She keeps the vowels and the sound, the inflection of the language. She keeps all of that up in the resonance, what I call inside of the instrument. She keeps all of that in the instrument, and she just lets the air into the sound here in order to create a particular affect.
Do you know Mariah? Well, of course you know Mariah Carey. Do you know the song "The Roof"?
No.
But it was definitely a little misty and that warm November.
It's 4 or 5 minutes of that, but that song, she cannot sing it live. Like if the tour from this, she always lips it, and it's like, well, why would she lip a song that's like that low and she's whispering? I know, like if I get sick and my voice is like really hoarse and it's a lot of air, it actually hurts to speak.
There's a lot less chord closure there with Mariah Carey in this particular song, and she is not using that high pronunciation. She's really, really in the mouth with it. Like if you, like if I just said, Mary had a little lamb, little lamb, little lamb, right? Then there's little chord closure and all of that is in. But if I instead go, Mary had a little lamb, little lamb, little lamb, like it's still like kind of a little bit breathy, but it has a lot more high pronunciation in it. And so that first thing I did, I got about 2 minutes of that. Yep.
So like, or if you think about somebody like a Brandy cannot bring that studio sound, that breathy sound into a live space.
Whenever I'm down, I call on you, my friend.
You can hear how it's going.
In my time of need.
It's going directly, the sound is going directly into the mouth. Whereas when you listen to Toni Braxton, you can hear the sound going up over into the resonance constantly. Do you have one with her live doing that? So when you listen to that, you hear her going, honey, honey, as opposed to honey, honey. The other two are doing honey, honey, where she's doing honey, honey up there. And you can hear that difference in the production when you listen to it, especially if you're now thinking about it, when you listen to the three things up, side by side.
And the winner is, open that hurry, Toni Braxton!
On the heels of breathy ballads like Breathe Again, 7 Whole Days, another sad love song, the newspaper would report, while Braxton is touted as the first lady of LaFace, she is on her way to being the first lady of R&B. Whitney Houston, or no Whitney Houston.
What I want to accomplish in my career is just to be an entertainer, period. Whether it's singing, acting, anything, the whole picture of an entertainer.
With all of her success, Braxton would soon find herself becoming a trendsetter. Along with Anita Baker, Braxton is credited with popularizing short haircuts for Black women. But this haircut could also be the reason why Braxton would be subjected to her first round of public criticism, with rumors beginning to spread that she was gay. As it came time to release her follow-up album, the LA Times would write, she would trade her cropped cut for long, luxuriant hair. And Braxton herself would address these rumors upon the release of Secrets, telling the Daily News, I'm a woman. I am comfortable in my sexuality, but I am not gay.
Inside of me. private thoughts.
Some critics even went as far as to say that the first single from the album, You're Making Me High, with its lyrics of sexual desire and masturbation,
I always think of you inside of my private thoughts. And just the thought of you can't help but touch myself.
backed by a video of male exhibitionism, was a response to the gay rumors. While other critics noted that the entire album was positioned to soften Braxton's image, the Record Journal wrote, on the first album, Braxton sounded capable of beating up any lover who did her wrong. He would continue, on Secrets, Braxton's hard-edged image has been softened and glamorized, noting that she is now taking a more Swoonier approach to singing.
You told me everything would be good.
Do you know what she said?
No, I do not. I was about to say, wait, play that again.
You told me everything would be good.
It told me everything. I didn't hear that. It's funny because I used to know those words, and right now I do not know what they are.
You told me everything would be cool.
Would be cool.
Yes. One of the critiques of her singing is you can't often understand what she is saying. That is a similar critique that Anita Baker got. I noticed Anita Baker actually sings primarily on a vowel, and it's very legato. Everything is connected, almost like a classical singer. Toni does something different.
She's actually doing the same thing that Anita Baker is doing, is she's not singing through her consonants. And she's not emphasizing the consonants, and she's not singing as pure of a vowel. Anita Baker sings very pure vowels. And I almost feel like Toni Braxton is trying not to sound like a classical artist sometimes. And so then she's doing that weird language thing that she's like, they tell me everything. That was actually really funny. But it seems like she's trying not to sound like she's a trained artist, which is probably what her label was telling her to do, right? Because they didn't want her to sound like an opera singer or like a Broadway singer, which eventually she went on Broadway, right? And then she does that like little hiccup thing that she likes to do sometimes, you know? And then she's doing that, and then it's obliterating the purity of the language.
Unbreak My Heart, Toni Braxton.
Braxton.
Happy for them. Everybody, thank you. Woo, this is a surprise. Thank you.
Off the heels of You're Making Me High, Let It Flow, and Unbreak My Heart, Secrets would outsell its predecessor and establish Braxton as the new it girl in music. For a brief period of time in 1997, Braxton was regarded as the #1 pop artist, with one critic writing, she was achieving success in pop and R&B markets that only Whitney Houston had touched a decade earlier.
Something that's interesting is that, you were around. A lot of people, for some reason, don't remember just how popular she was. I mean, we talk about Whitney, we talk about Mariah, we talk about Celine, but at one point, especially during those first 2 albums, she was outselling them.
Mm-hmm.
So from your perspective, as somebody who was on the ground during that time, what happened? Like, how did she get left out of those conversations?
You know what? It's the machines that artists have around them.
Thank you. My record company, L.A. Reid, Babyface.
When discussing Braxton today, some ask why she left out of discussions of pop divadom. And everything will point back to the Secrets album. With all of its pop success, LaFace Records was intentional in not positioning Braxton as a pop artist, with Babyface telling a reporter, while she is having pop success, her core sound and audience will always be R&B. To follow up two internationally successful albums, Braxton would embark on her first major tour.
B-R-O-K-E, broke?
Broke.
Like broke.
Like, no money.
No money. Like net worth what?
Negative.
But in late 1997, at the conclusion of the tour, Braxton learned that her total album sales had generated over $170 million, but she was $5 million in debt. According to the Fresno Bee, Braxton was receiving around 30 cents per album sold. However, industry executives estimated that a Grammy Award-winning artist like Braxton would typically get $1 for every album sold.
She has filed for bankruptcy. Appraisers are now taking stock of her personal possessions, her baby grand piano, her Gucci silverware, her Porsche and Lexus. They're even counting her shoes and her Grammys.
She would file suit against her record label and declare bankruptcy.
Aretha Franklin. The newspapers say she's drowning in debt and doesn't pay her bills.
After reading the article, it appears you have severe money problems. Are you broke?
What is important to note about this time is that many of Arista's divas, such as Taylor Dayne, Aretha Franklin, Dionne Warwick, and TLC, were all having money issues at the same time. In pop music fashion, if Braxton's debut album released in 1993 was followed up in 1996, Unbreak My Heart is number 1 in 1997, her follow-up album would have likely been released in 1998. However, following the lawsuit, legally put a stop to Braxton's recording career.
So this is just an editor's note, just for clarity. It was not the bankruptcy. Well, that was a PR nightmare, but her suing LaFace and Arista Records nullified the contract, preventing her from recording and working in music. That is what put a stop on her career while she was number 1 in the world.
And as Braxton would put it, if it had not been for Broadway, I would be on VH1's Where Are They Now?
As you just mentioned, she does go on Broadway, and you can understand
every single word, because she knows that's what she's there to do.
And it's so good and real.
And so I think in each genre that she's in, she's trying to do what she thinks is expected of her. And you know, when you're a trained singer and you do start crossing over into other music, that's one of the first things that they start telling you is, oh, your pronunciation is too clear. Oh, stop overpronouncing your words. Oh, your consonants are too hard. Oh, take that T off the end of that word. You're spending too much time with that L, you know? Oh, your vowels sound too proper.
In her Broadway repertoire, you'll see a lot of the music is arranged for her to do a lot of singing in the A to C region. Broadway fans would end up being split, mainly due to her omission of high notes. For example, in Aida, Dance of the Road has a written high F. Toni substitutes it for a B flat in the center of the voice. If you compare her singing these pieces of music to her actual music, you'll see the structure is still pretty much the same. A low note around low G is in the vocal line.
There's been a change in me, a kind of moving on.
Big note around A to C in the center of the voice. Based purely on the recordings that we do have available, we don't hear Toni going to the top or above the staff in any of her Broadway music as she would in her solo music. Though some fans who did see her have commented that she did sing high notes in these productions. Many will say that much of contemporary Broadway music is composed in the same fashion as pop music. And looking at Braxton's musical arrangements, there may be some truth in that.
The last thing I had out was Secrets, which was in '96. So it was a while, and that stayed out for almost 2 years. So it's been a good 2.5 years that I've been gone.
In 1999, Braxton, with a new record deal, would finally be able to return to the studio, and she would release The Heat.
When I first started recording, the hardest thing was for me is singing like Toni again versus Broadway Toni. Broadway is different than pop soul singing that I do. It's like Glee Club style singing, and I love that. And thank God I took it in high school and college because it really helped me a lot. But for example, Breathe Again wouldn't be sung with the husky, sassy tone that no one can understand.
To critics, The Heat represented an extension of the singing style and aesthetic that Braxton had developed on Secrets. The Gazette would write, instead of showing us how much range and volume she can muster, Braxton emphasizes color and expression on this album, using her voice to tease, caress, flirt, and cajole. There's even a song, Maybe, where critics can't really decipher what she is saying, calling it sort of half-sung rapid-fire chanting.
Coming over to Pakistan and I'm wondering if I'm really gonna let him and get it up, let it go.
If I never feel you in my arms again, don't bother with the end. For Broadway, and then that brassy tone I have, I'd have to take that husk out, which is hard because that's my natural tone. And so when I first came to record this album, I was singing like that. So he wasn't man enough for me.
The star of the album, however, would be the album's lead single, where critics said Braxton moans the lyrics in a soulful counterpoint to the background singers.
It's an exercise I thought was really funny, and so let's do it together. So how you and I would say it, say this: who do you think I am?
Who do you think I am? Or you mean say it how I would say it if I was really asking the question?
Just say it. Just as Liz Stevens, as I would say that's Milik. Who do you think I am?
Who do you think I am?
All right. And so if I were to say it as Toni Braxton in the song, who do you think I am?
Who do you think I am? Don't you know that he was my man?
Try that and you'll feel like
absolutely
your stomach muscles. Try it.
Of course. Who do you think I am? Who do you think I am?
Yeah. What is causing that? These muscles get really activated and tight.
Oh yeah, it's the exact thing that I was talking about earlier about trying to get the sound up into the resonance. So even though she's trying to. Because the voice works with a pressurized air system. You have to pressurize the air in the resonance and inside of the body, and the sound that you're going to get is going to be largely dependent on how balanced those two pressures are. And in opera, we're looking for the extreme balance of them. And in most popular forms, there is a little bit less of a balance, right? Like we were talking about how people will intentionally let air move through here, which is going to under pressurize the air in the resonance, all kinds of different things. So, but when you start to support all the time, you will find that in order to pop that language back up into the resonance like that, you're going to have a lot of activity from the breath through just trying to get the language to go up there so fast and to have each syllable be supported because each syllable needs its own support and its own connectivity all the time.
So even her mispronunciation or modal is just helping her get
it's still healthy singing. It's still healthy singing.
Looking at the 3 albums retrospectively, some fans make a distinction between short hair Toni and long hair Toni, as it refers to her style of singing. You'll see fans commenting, "Oh my god, she used to go off," or "She plays it safe now." How did this happen? Following the release of The Heat, Braxton releases 2 more albums, More Than a Woman and Libra, and embarks on a history-making Las Vegas residency.
So excited. This is like my first show in Vegas, and I'm just crazy right now. I'm out of breath, as you could tell. Oh my God, we got through it. It was wonderful. I'm excited. I'm revved up. Everyone was there.
The residency is canceled prematurely because Braxton runs into a series of health issues. She publicly comes forward with being diagnosed with an autoimmune disease.
I have lupus, and it's a really hard disease to diagnose, at least for me it was. I had the signs years ago.
So it comes out she has lupus, and that affects all the muscles that she needs to sing.
The hardest thing about being a singer is you cannot ever put your instrument down. You cannot separate your instrument from your body, and your body is the instrument, your entire body. And while we focus on this part of the instrument and the breath support and all, and we really kind of focus here when we're really studying like the actual mechanisms, it takes the entire body to sing, and especially to perform in the way that she performs.
I don't know if you noticed there, but she has to take a lot of breaths now.
She's trying to dance around. She's trying to give you expression. She's trying to give you drama and show and divitude and all of the other and all of the rest. That is a lot of physical work. It's hard. And so anything that happens in your body is going to affect your voice. I can't speak to the actual disease lupus because I don't know enough about that disease specifically to say what's going to happen to someone when they have when they are dealing with it, but it's going to change. It's going to change everything, Milik, from the amount of strength you have in your muscles to the amount of mucus you can produce on your cords. Any kind of anti-inflammatory or any type of inflammatory or autoimmune disease, which I think lupus is autoimmune, is going to affect. It's absolutely going to affect the amount of mucus you can make on your cords, which is going to change how much they can actually vibrate, because they rely on that moisture to be able to vibrate, and it's I can't even imagine being her and knowing what she could do at one point. And how it feels to try to do that now.
For what it's worth, the voice is still sort of kind of in the same place. So it's like it hasn't really dropped in range. It's like she can still sing everything in the same key for the most part. But I guess if the house...
She doesn't have the physical stamina for it. I don't know what she's doing in terms of training. I don't know how the disease works to say, can she train herself back to it or not? I don't know. I know, and because in certain things you can figure out how to work around that thing just by retraining the instrument. Like I'll say this because because a lot of women deal with this, but I had like really horrible uterine fibroids, and they cut basically into me like I had a C-section. And so I completely lost my support in my abdominal. I had very little control over my ab muscles. And they don't really prepare you for that in the doctor's office. They just tell you, oh, you're going to be fine, because you can technically go back to working a normal job, but you have to really rebuild and reconstruct the instrument after you go through major surgery, after you have any kind of major illness or during a major illness. Sometimes you'll never get it back. And especially if you can't get the muscular stamina for it, then the voice is still there, because the voice is the voice. And she's trained the voice to do certain things, and there's a type of muscle memory that develops. It's always going to be there. She's always going to have those notes. She'll have a harder time building up enough pressure and maintaining that pressure underneath the sound to sustain the long phrases that she used to be able to sustain, and to consistently get through an entire concert like she used to be able to.
And then you add on like she's what, 55 or 56
Exactly.
now. So you add on menopause and whatever other hormonal changes. Okay.
Woo, that's what I'm on.
Which also, just to round things up, and because I was thinking, I know like my favorite tennis player, Venus Williams, she has an autoimmune disease, and she actually started having symptoms a decade before she got diagnosed. I know it takes an average of almost a decade.
And that's what happens with autoimmune diseases, because the doctors a lot of times can't identify it. And so many autoimmune syndromes, this I do know because my sister has a very bad autoimmune condition, and I have some autoimmune issues myself. But autoimmune diseases are really hard to diagnose because the symptoms can present like any number of things. And a lot of times it's not like you can just take a blood test and figure out that this is what it is. The doctors have to put together a puzzle, and you have to find a specialist who understands how that works.
Autoimmune diseases such as lupus can take years to diagnose. The Lupus Foundation reports that it often takes between 4 and 6 years from the first symptom to have a confirmed diagnosis. Assuming that the heart condition was one of the first major symptoms of lupus, there is a strong chance that her initial symptoms may have started back as far as the late 90s. The exact period when fans and critics began noticing a change in her singing.
So it's pretty likely that she was, even in her prime, she was dealing with these effects backstage, but she was just young.
Very likely, very likely.
If we view singers as athletes, the story of Toni Braxton is very close to that of Venus Williams, a powerful athlete who exploded on the scene and quickly rose to the top.
Venus Williams.
While at the top, she had a series of health episodes and diagnoses.
Superstar Venus Williams dropped out of her U.S. Open match Wednesday just minutes before she was supposed to take to the court. The reason, a surprise diagnosis of Sjogren's syndrome. How long have you been feeling the symptoms of this disease?
I think I've had issues with Sjogren's for a while. It just wasn't diagnosed, and I came to learn that it takes an average of 6.5 years for people to get diagnosed.
What we can learn about both of these women is that they achieved their success despite their bodies working against them. When their bodies should have been at their peaks and when they should have been in their respective primes, they were getting weaker. When Toni debuted in 1993, she was by all accounts considered a power singer. Power comes from physical strength, and as she gets older and weaker due to the illness and natural aging, the body has become compromised. The doctor said she would never be able to perform again.
Show some love for Toni Braxton!
But nearly 20 years after the first initial health crises, she is still selling out venues across the world.
What I want to accomplish in my career is just to be an entertainer, period. Whether it's singing, acting, anything, the whole picture of an entertainer.
The name Toni Braxton is often left out of many discussions in pop music. But when we speak about the quintessential 90s diva and mention Whitney, Mariah, and Celine, it's important to remember that Toni Braxton was there, and she remains one of the last living artists of the diva tradition.
Just whatever I do in life, just to be great at it or do my best. I could sell 2 million records, and that would be, or one record, but as long as I have the best possible material that I can have for my fans and for my listeners, and for radio, who've been so supportive of me, and I really appreciate it so much. That's what really matters right now. I'm just going to take it one day at a time, and definitely count my blessings.